Hello, everyone. Happy Monday evening. Hopefully, everyone had a great weekend and a good start to the week. You probably won't see this till Tuesday, so happy Tuesday. We are here to talk about Invincible Season 2, Episode 1. I think it's titled A Lesson in Your New Life. I think that's what it's titled. Like I said in my initial reaction, this episode was just okay. It didn't blow my socks off. Compared to Season 1, it didn't even hold a candle, which I would be okay with if I didn't feel like they were trying to recapture some of that magic from the season 1 premiere. And I felt like when they tried to do that, it didn't work so well for me. It felt more so that I was confused more than anything. But I wasn't confused to the point where I didn't enjoy myself, because I really did enjoy this episode for the most part. I'm just glad that we're back, and hopefully we won't be gone for too long. I'll touch on that at the end of the video. So let's get started. We open up, and this is where we're in the alternate dimension where Omni-Man and Mark join forces and enslave the Earth. So we get that whole scene. We're introduced to that world and to that world's Angstrom Levy. And I just, as much as I liked that sequence, I did like the action, I liked the suspense, I liked the tension that it built. I felt like this could have been saved for episode 2. And I said this in my initial reaction that we kind of spent too much time with this multi-dimensional stuff. Even though it is the crux of the season, we just came off of a world-ending series of events at the end of season 1 with Omni-Man. And this was the time to just put all of your focus into that and to see how these characters are doing. And I felt like when they tried to splice those scenes with the main plot with Angstrom Levy and building his origin story, essentially, it really didn't work, because there's no connective tissue until kind of the very end. Obviously, when we start off, there's that connective tissue where Mark and Omni-Man, they are the villains, right? So with the Angstrom Levy, I think it was 646 or something, you can understand why maybe he would go on to try and do what he's doing, because he has a bone to pick with Omni-Man and Mark. But when we meet the main Angstrom Levy, he doesn't really have that connection. He's trying to get that from his alternate selves, which we'll get into down the line. So I just feel like there was no connective tissue until the very end, so the splicing was kind of weird. But anyways, as I was saying, I think they were trying to recapture some of that shock and awe, but I was a little confused. So we are introduced to Angstrom Levy. Is it Levy? I don't want to say it wrong, the whole review. I need to look this up. Is it Levy or Levi? It's Levy. I'm going with Levy. Sorry. I just want to make sure I don't say it wrong, but I feel like I am anyway, so it's Levy. We meet with Angstrom Levy and the Resistance, which is filled with him, Robot, Eve, and I believe that's it. Those are the only characters that I recognized. So Omni-Man and Mark, they end up finding this hideout, right, after taking out the Immortal at the very beginning. And so we get this battle sequence. It's Omni-Man versus Robot, which ends fairly quickly. And then it's Mark versus Eve. And this was a little annoying, because we just came from the prequel with Adam Eve, where we got to see the full extent of her powers. And then we cut to here in the future. This is a rough and ragged Eve, so she should be on top of her game, especially part of the Resistance. And when she's battling Mark, she's using the most basic constructs. I'm like, really? Like, you couldn't rearrange his molecules or something? Like, my friend said that, like, while we were watching, and I was like, yeah, I feel like that should have happened. I don't know why it didn't. It was a little annoying, but not too annoying that I was taken out of the scene. So those two fight. He ends up paralyzing Eve by, like, snapping her neck a certain way, which I've never seen that before, so that was concerning. So after all of that, they are getting ready to destroy the entire Resistance, including Angstrom Levy 646, and he escapes via a portal, which we find out later that was made by the main Angstrom Levy, right? So we cut away from that, and we are in the present day, and Mark is just being a hero. It's a montage of him doing heroic things, and all of this is really him processing the trauma that he went through in the first season. Like I mentioned in my initial reaction, he has a lot of survival skill, and he's really working overtime to prove really to himself that he's not his father. And it's just sad. Like, he's going through it. He is exhausting himself to no end. He's just on overdrive, and he doesn't really have anyone around him to kind of really stop him. I feel like the only person who could really do that, who's in that superhero game, would be, of course, Cecil and Eve, because I feel like they're kind of the closest to him in that regard. And Eve wasn't there for too long. So he really needs someone there to just kind of anchor him down. And I feel like his mom is not enough right now, because she's also going through it. And she's also trying to heal from what went on in season 1, you know? So after all of that, we cut back to Angstrom Levy, and he basically breaks the Mauler Twins out of prison, and I'm happy to see the Mauler Twins again. They were a joy last season. I mean, you know, they're villains, but they were fun. Like, I really, really liked them. And what's it called? Was that it from that scene? Yeah, I think that was it. So we cut away from that, and we're back with Mark. He's going back to school for the first time since everything happened. And as I mentioned earlier, the splicing of the scenes is awkward. I can't even like make my transition smooth because it's like jumping from one thing to the next. But essentially, he's in school, and the bully walks up to him from the first season, but he decides not to be a dickwad. He's like, I'm sorry your dad got exploded, which was very funny. And he kind of inadvertently almost causes Mark to have like a panic attack. And so before that can go down and go way left, Amber swoops in and is like, thanks, we're good. Amber. But I have to admit, I appreciate her pulling Mark out of that situation, because it would have went way left. But they go to sit at the lunch table, and they start having a conversation. And just keep this conversation in mind, and how Mark is addressing Amber, and how he is open with Amber, or how open he is with Amber. So, Mark is still very closed off during this conversation with Amber, and she basically, you know, tries to reaffirm, like, you saved those people. I know that this is a lot. I know that you're going through it, but you should understand that you saved those people. It's not your fault what your dad did. And through this whole conversation, Amber notes his heroism and pretty much tells him, look, you don't owe anyone anything. You did your part. You saved the universe. Understand that, and don't hold yourself to such high expectations, or, you know, don't hold this burden. Don't let it weigh you down to the ground. So we cut away from that, and Mark meets with Cecil, and he asks to get back in the game because he feels like he needs to be out there. And Cecil's basically like, no, you're not ready. You went through a whole lot, and I need to make sure that your mind is 100% there. And I don't feel like it is, so we're not doing it. And Mark does not respond to that well. He has a little moment where he's like, I'm not my dad. I'm not my dad. And he like crushes the table, and I'm like, we sure about that? Okay, buddy. Okay. Jeez. So after Mark meets with Cecil, we cut to Cecil and the Guardians. He's basically watching them fight the giant, which I'm not too familiar with. I'm sure he is from the books. I need to do a little research on that. But he basically has the mental capacity of an 8-year-old. And so they do this whole battle sequence, and you can tell that things are a bit sloppy. And you have the leadership in Robot, but he's getting used to his new body and all the new sensations and feelings that come along with it. Like during the battle, he experiences fear for the first time, and it kind of caught him off guard. And Monster Girl was like, this is normal, dude. Like, don't even stress. You're good. So they end up taking him down, though. And we cut away from that, and we're back with Angstrom and the Mauler Twins. So he unveils basically his whole plan. He unveils a large somatic encoder. And this encoder can read, copy, and write human minds. So his whole plan is to basically take 1,000+ versions of Angstrom Levy, take their experience and what they know from their specific dimension, and encode it into his brain. That's his whole plan. a huge project where you copy and paste. That's his whole thing. So Angstrom, he ends up unveiling his alternate selves to the Mauler Twins, and he says he has several more stashed across other dimensions, which I hope that comes back up again, because, like, he said he had, like, tens of thousands. So how many dimensions are we talking here? Like, how many did you pull? And are they going to come back into play? Are they going to be returned to their respective universes? I don't know. I sure hope so, because I feel like you kidnap these people against your will. Like, it's just kind of crazy. When he was describing his whole plan, Angstrom, you know, I was looking at it and it was kind of giving martyr. Like, he really wanted to be a martyr for this cause. Because one of the Mauler Twins asks, like, why couldn't you just ask them questions? And that's a good question. Like, there's no reason why he couldn't have just asked them questions, gathered what he needed to gather from them, and move on. The fact that you have to encode all of their memories and experiences into your mind so then you can create what you feel is your utopia, it really feels like, I don't want to say he's narcissistic, but he has somewhat of an ego, and he definitely wants to be a martyr for his cause. And obviously it blows up in his face, literally and figuratively. So I just found that to be funny. It was like, you know, this act, it's not going to go too well. And it's so funny how the cards turn down the line, and we'll get there soon. So we cut away from that, and we are with Debbie, who's having dinner with Olga. She stands in, like, the doorway with the knife and giving real horror movie energy. I was like, okay, Olga, all right. So, you know, she was there visiting from Moscow, just trying to be there for Debbie, trying to be a friend, which was nice. Debbie certainly needs that because she's been going through it just as much as Mark, and she doesn't have anyone to lean on like Mark does. So during this dinner, Olga slides her a card, a mysterious card, saying that, look, it helped me when I had to bury my husband, Red Rush, and I think it could help you. And I don't know if this card was in season 1. I don't remember it. I feel like I've never seen it before. So I don't know what that is. Hopefully it comes back up. Maybe it's some type of organization or something. I don't know. You know, sometimes they have those organizations for, like, spouses of superheroes or something like that. And maybe that's what that is. I don't know. So we cut away from that, and we're back with the Guardians, the aftermath of the giant mission. So Cecil, not a happy camper. He just verbally rips into them. He's like, this was not good. Things need to change. I'm not happy. And so basically he decides to change leadership because he's like, this is some bullshit. And he brings in the Immortal. So I was very surprised by that. I feel like that's not going to last too long because the Immortal, he's just so wary of everything around him. I think rightfully so, given the events of last season. But I feel like the way that he's going to run this team, he's going to kind of run it into the ground, and people are not really going to trust him. So they brought him in, and then surprisingly, they brought Bulletproof in. Now, like I said in my initial reaction, I was not expecting him to be there so soon, but that's on me because I didn't have that much knowledge on him. So all I knew of Bulletproof was that he came in and took the mantle of Invincible while Mark was like not. I think he was not on planet Earth. So he was just not invincible. So he came in and took that role. And that's really all I knew of him. So that's why I was surprised to see him. And I also knew that he had a twin, which hopefully they address that. But I did some research, and he actually did end up trying out for the Guardians, but he didn't make the initial cut. But he came in when Cecil wanted to change leadership, and he was there with the Immortal. So it kind of went by how it went in the books, which I really appreciate. It's just a lot of this is beat for beat from the book, which I really, really appreciate. So I'm glad that he's here, and he's wearing the costume that Invincible almost chose in season 1. So that was interesting. And I wonder if he's going to take the mantle of Invincible this season, especially with Mark just going through fucking everything. He might decide to hang up the suit for a while and then Bulletproof swoops in. So I don't know, but I'm happy to see him, happy to see another black hero, and he fucking owns Rex as soon as he walks in, and it was so good. It was so good. But we cut away from that, and we are back with Mark, and Eve is here. Eve visits for a second. You know, I love Eve. I'm happy to see Eve. And this is why I said to keep the conversation between Mark and Amber in mind, because when he and Eve go to talk, I think they're on the roof, it takes him no time to be vulnerable with her and just to be open with her. And I felt like he was not this relaxed and vulnerable with Amber, his own girlfriend, but he's always been like that with Eve. And that's all I gotta say. That's all I have to say. So writers, we don't need this thing with Amber to go on for too long, please. All right, thank you. But regardless, the topic of the conversation was, of course, how is Mark doing? Like, how are you dealing with everything? And he's essentially not really dealing with it head on. He's just kind of overworking himself. And Eve is the first person in the episode to flat out tell him, you're not your dad. The world knows that. We know that. You are not your dad. You saved the world. Like, you're a great guy. She didn't say that, but that's essentially what it was given. And so this leads Mark to taking things in his own hands. And, you know, he goes back to Cecil because he tells Eve, like, Cecil doesn't know that. So she's like, okay, well, prove it to him. So he goes to Cecil and he's like, I can work with you. Okay. I will wear the earpiece. I'll take orders. Just put me back in. And so he decides to put him back in. And he sends him after the Mauler Twins and Angstrom because they fly on Cecil's radar, right? We cut to the twins, and they've started the encoder machine at this point. All the Angstrom Levies are in there. The main one is in the throne. And so the thing starts, and he's having the time of his life. Then Invincible busts in. So then they get to pummeling the Mauler Twins and Invincible. Bow, 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 bow. Great little action scene. I'm so glad Mark gets his moment to shine before he ultimately gets his ass beat. You know, it's not Invincible if Mark's not getting his ass beat. And I feel like for this first half, he's going to get his ass beat like every single episode. Obviously, I hope that's not the case, but I don't trust the writers, so it is what it is. But, you know, they're fighting. And so Angstrom's like, yo, relax. And so then he brings in Mauler Twins from other dimensions. And then they start fighting Invincible. So they're pummeling him. Like, boom, 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 boom. Beating him to a pulp. He is bloody. And so Angstrom gets upset. Because he's like, I don't want this blood. I don't want this violence. I don't want to build my utopia in blood. So this idiot takes off the helmet that he was wearing in the encoder. He takes it off. And the Mauler Twins said before, once we start the process, you cannot take this off. So, of course, he doesn't listen. He kickstarts all of this disaster by bringing in the Mauler Twins from other dimensions, and then he takes off the helmet. And, of course, everything goes wrong. Everything freaking explodes. So, Invincible is kind of having PTSD because he was in the midst of this situation and he felt like he could have done more to not have it so everything went awry, which obviously that's not your fault. Like you couldn't control Angstrom Levy. You didn't know his motivations. Like you couldn't control that. So what's it called? But Cecil tells him after all of this, him and Rex. Well, actually not Rex, but Cecil tells him, like, look, everyone involved, they did this to themselves, which is true. I mean, Angstrom really kickstarted this whole thing, so. But what's it called? We cut away from that, and then we cut to the scene where Mark and Amber find out that they're going to college together. Yay! I care so much. I just feel like after the debacle of last season, like, why? It's so funny. I was scrolling on YouTube and they sponsored the video where they were showing Mark and Amber's relationship timeline. I'm like, please get this away from me, Prime Video. Like, I do not want to see this. We don't want to see it. Stop. But whatever. They just feel so stale, and you're trying to push them on me after how you wrote her last season. And the things that happened last season weren't truly resolved between them because there was no accountability on Amber's end. So it's just like, it's so weird just seeing them together when there was really no resolution on Amber's front because she did not apologize or take accountability for her role. But whatever. So we cut away from that, and Mark is walking home, and the Immortal pops in, and basically he's like, they may trust you, but I don't, and I'll be watching you. And I wonder how that's gonna play out. Like, this is what I'm saying. I feel like he's going to run things into the ground because of his inherent mistrust of everything around him. Rightfully so, but I just don't think it's gonna pan out, especially if Invincible is a part of the team. So the episode officially ends, but of course, like the episodes last season, we have a little end credit thing, and basically the Mauler twin, he survives the attack, but half of his body is fucking blown off. The skin is gone. It's very gross. And Angstrom Levy survives, and we get, you know, how he looked in the books. His brain is enlarged, it's deformed, it's gross, it's like going down his back, it's bloody. Ugh, it's gross. But basically he survives, and he has all the memories and shit of all of his alternate selves in here. So he's going through it, and he's basically like, I am going to kill Invincible. This is all his fault. I don't care what anyone says. This is all his fault. And it's just, I'm just looking like, this is your fault, dude. Like, this is literally all your fault. Like, you can't blame Mark for how things went down. And then I guess he's trying to use the memories of his alternate selves to build this motivation of wanting to kill Mark. But I feel like it just doesn't work because those aren't his memories. Those aren't his experiences. It's his alternate selves. Like, I think it would have been better if the Angstrom that we met at the very beginning was the one that wanted to go through this entire experiment. I think it would make sense to me way more as to why he wants to kill Mark, because he already saw Mark at his lowest, most evil point in time, where he literally took over Earth with his father. And then to top it all off, he comes to this new planet thinking maybe things are different or something, and no, he's the same as in the rest of the dimensions. And then that's all it takes for him. Like, that would have been better if we were with Angstrom 646 rather than the main Angstrom Levy, if that makes sense. So yeah, the episode's over. So that was pretty much it. Oh brother. If he really wanted to blame someone, he could blame the twins. Like, did you expect them not to attack? Like, you told the twins to attack Mark. Like, anyways, whatever. The episode's over now. My rating, I think I'm gonna keep it at an 8. I could lean to an 8.5, but I think I'm gonna keep it at an 8 out of 10. It was a good start, but I felt like there weren't enough connective tissues between the main villain and Mark. At least not yet. I'm sure they're gonna build on that as the season goes on, so I'm very excited to see that. But other than that, hello, me editing. I'm popping back in because I forgot to comment on what I mentioned at the beginning of the video when I said I hope the break isn't too long. Shout out to Blackstone, because they made me aware of the fact that we are going to have the first part of season 2 in 2023. And then we're going to go on like a 2-month break, and we're going to have the second half of season 2, I guess, in 2024. I don't know if this is partly because of the strike or this is just how they wanted to format it. I am not a happy camper just because of how long it took us to get here in the first place. And it took us this long before the strike even happened, you know? So it's just, to hear that we're going to be delayed after 4 episodes again, I just don't want to lose interest in this show like I almost did before the season even premiered. So I really hope that if we are going on break, or when we go on break, like, it's not longer than a month, maybe. Yeah, that's pretty much it though. Back to the video. I think that's it for me. That's pretty much my thoughts on the episode. I fairly enjoyed it. I'm excited to see what's to come. Hopefully Mark does not go down the deep end. He seems to be kind of regaining his sense of self and trying to regain some normalcy, but you know, obviously that's going to take some time. Eve, I hope Eve is in the picture more. I don't really care about Amber. Where is Will? Where's his best friend? Where is Will? Are we like? Can we figure that out? Thanks. But that's what I thought. Let me know what you think or don't. But either way, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.